This is Patrick Roth, Senior Support Tech for E1 Business Solutions. Today we're going to look at a somewhat uncommon request of a user using the SmartConnect Excel Add-in to pull data out of SmartConnect, or in this case, their destination GP data via this WCF web services. So in this case, what they would like to do is they would like to be able to enter in their filter data criteria into the map, and then using the get data button, once you've entered the service settings, once you enter the service settings and we use the get data, then we want to be able to run the query against their GP database that uses these three fields as the filter data criteria, and then just return that specific set of data. Now, the Excel add-in does have the capability to filter data after the fact, but in this case, they have a very large data set, and the table they're going to query, you don't want to filter, run the query to pull all the data and then filter out almost all of the data just to get the exact results you want. So that is a functionality of the add-in, but it's certainly not the most efficient way to do it in their particular case. So how would we go about this? After thinking about it a little bit, I believe we could. I've done a number of different integrations using filtered data sources, and you can use global variables, you can use different ways of setting it, current day minus 2 days and kind of thing. But in this case, we need to be able to pass the data, and currently the SmartConnect add-in, Excel add-in, doesn't have a way to pass data to a map using the get data button. And actually, even if it did, it wouldn't make any difference because that particular API does not have that capability. So that's just not going to work with that kind of thing. So we're going to have to be a little tricky and outside the box to figure this out. So thinking about this, what we could do is we could make a custom table and put in the fields that we want in the custom table. And then from a second map, we can use these fields from the custom table in order to pull the data filter and then apply it to the query. Now that'll work pretty well because, of course, this is just run map from a SmartConnect perspective. So SmartConnect can run this map no problem, and it could write to whatever destination. So in this case, that custom SQL table, and it could write these three values into it. So that actually is not a problem. And then from the get data standpoint, if we run a separate map, a child map, let's say, we can have it read that record that just got inserted and then run the data filter. And when the get data map runs, then it'll pull the query, we'll have the data, and that should work. So I think that should work fine. So let's get started. And we'll start off with our Excel file. So in this case, our Excel file is simple. Is just using the three fields that we had a second ago, and we will start them with one set of data so that we can get it set up and test with. So if we go back to SmartConnect, we create a new data source, and we would pick that file that we just had. And if we do a preview on it, we can see that indeed it does read that bit of data just fine. So that's good. And then as far as the second part of that is, then we would create a new map, and I just called it the same thing as my source. Make it simple, file folder, and then pick the source we just made, and we'll use the key fields. And again, we see it read the three fields, and this is the correct one. And if we prefib here, also works. Then we need to go to the table. So we need to create a SQL table. And so I have the SQL script, which we include in the zip file for download. And in this case, it's very simple. Our three fields, and then just a dummy character. I suppose we could have just used the customer number, I suppose, as our PK on the table. But if we'd ever want to have multiple apps, say we wanted to do one for vendors and one for documents like here, we could use this. So I just put in an integer and made that the primary key on the table. And so we run this, it'll create the table in my GP2 database, and we're going to use that as our destination. So if we pop back to SmartConnect, indeed, GP2, and the query restriction, and a simple mapping. Here for that index, we'll just put in local constant of 1, so it doesn't matter. Again, I could use 2. I could have used the map name. You could have done anything. Like I said, it could have just as well used the customer ID, since I'm probably not. But the thing about that, of course, is as you change your customers, we don't really care about this data. So if I would use customer ID as the PK on this table, then as I change my customer ID, then I would be adding new records into the table, which it wouldn't be the end of the world, but don't really need it that way. And then you map your fields to logical fields. So from our perspective, we can run this, and we verified that it worked. And just to make sure we didn't screw it up, let's run a second time. I did have the update existing checkbox marked, and so I will notice it didn't fail. So that one did work. So then the next part of this is we want to be able to pull up that record, and then we also need to be able to do our actual query with the data filter that we added. So in this case, I want to make MS SQL query data source. I'm going to point it to my GP2 database, which is where my GP data is in this case. And we're going to declare 3 local variables. And the first line of data is merely going to run it and find our record that is now there because we just pushed it in. So, but then in the case of running from, it'll be the updated record from the map run. And so we're going to set that and get it. And then finally, once we do that, we can run our query. Now, of course, I could have done a select join. I could have done a number of different things. Again, depends on how you want to do it and what your query looks like. This case it's using in between. I just took the simple route in order to make this easier. And if I run this, it returns back a handful of records, and we do notice that all the doc dates are in the range that I want. So this did read it, and this did work properly as far as we can tell. If we go back to the map then, again, we name it whatever we need. This can be a bulk query this time, not file, because now we're going to use the SQL query we just did. And again, I can choose my key field, and I'll just use customer number. Is fine for our purposes because we just want to see the one. We want to see all of them for this customer in this date range. And so that should be good. For a destination, we don't really need a destination, but SmartConnect makes you have a destination for all maps, whether or not you care about it. And so we were just going to send it to a file. We're going to send it to a dummy comma delimited file. It's just going to a local drive. So we're not going to have any UNC paths. It don't have to be anything fancy. It's just going right to the drive. And actually, I don't believe using the get all data method that SmartConnect Add-in uses, I don't believe it actually runs the map. I think it just pulls the data source. So I don't think it's even going to write the file. But we got to map it. So I just mapped all the fields. And if I run it, again, it runs. And if I run it again, just to verify that I didn't do something foolish, like not choose to overwrite the file, just in case I'm wrong, then we see that it did work. All right, so that actually looks pretty good. So from a map perspective, this is the one that's going to push in our filter data criteria. This is the one that's going to pull the filter data criteria, run it against our actual query, and then return the data. So does that work? So here we go. I pulled up a copy of that spreadsheet, and we'll notice this time I left the customer the same, but I changed my date range. I just set it to January. And if I look in my service settings, I entered on-prem, my URL, my password, user creds, and then I chose my map, and I say, hey, we're going to pull from sheet 1, which is fine. Here's my second child map. This is my get data map. And I'll go from a worksheet, and in this case I made a worksheet sheet 3, and we chose it. So what's going to happen then is when I do it, it's going to paste the data back into sheet 3 for me. So first thing you do, of course, is we run the map, and it says it worked. We assume so. It worked before, it worked now. And then lastly, let's do a get data. It says, hey, I got data. That was pretty quick. And if we go back here, we do see indeed it pulled that same list of records that we have. And we know it worked because in this case, instead of it being in April, I have all the data for this customer for the month of January 2027. So this looks like it works successfully for us, and I don't see why it shouldn't work for any customer and date range combination that we choose.